Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are continuing to follow us on the live feed on Facebook. We appreciate that very much. We started this feature I think it's been over a year or so now, and it's growing. The great thing about the Facebook Live is that not necessarily while people are watching during the show when we're doing this live as we are today. Typically we do them right around 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. But more importantly, it stays on Facebook, and people can watch the video, listen to it. However, it is a podcast. I want to remind those, if you're just listening or watching this for the first time, do us a favor, go download the podcast. You could do that at iTunes or anywhere online. Just type in Real Estate Radio Live, and you could download the podcast, follow the show, listen to it at your convenience. We appreciate it. We continue to grow the audience, and we want to do that by really providing you with quality material information. I say this a lot, but we do work on it a lot, I think, and we get some good feedback. And so the goal is to have great guests like we have today, partnerships, Mike and I. We do a series on starting something new and growing your business with Jack Russo. All of this is really community related. So some people that might say, I thought this was a real estate show. It is. It's a focus on real estate, the ins and outs of real estate. We're educating the consumer to make you a more wise consumer. But we also want to bring the community in, and we do that in many different ways as well. So it is Wednesday, I think, if I'm getting my head straight here. It is Wednesday. It is. Right? It
is Wednesday.
So that means two Italian guys talking real estate. Mike is back in studio from time to time. Depending on everybody's schedules, we try to stick to the Wednesday afternoon right around 3 o'clock. So we are here today. And the topic is going to be taking the emotions out of real estate. And one of the reasons we'll go into more detail about that is that, looking at this market, everybody would agree that it's changed a bit. It's back to what I would call a normal market. We've talked about that before. But over and above that, we're going to dive into a little psychology, too, and we're going to go Dr. Phil on you a little bit, maybe, and we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamics.
Kind of like my job daily. Yep.
There you go. That's true. Yep. We have the Dr. Phil of real estate here, Mike D'Ambrosio. We don't have a couch, so we're going to stay away from the couch and the chairs today, but we do have the in-studio conversation. So we're going to do that. And the idea here is that, honestly, most of you know that if you've been participating in real estate, you bought or sold or you're in it, it's an emotional decision. It is. I mean, for most people, especially for the first time or even when you're doing it for a second or third time, it's emotional especially if you have families and children involved and schools and where you're going to move and your doctors are going to, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Hint, hint, someone's going through that again.
Yeah.
But
this is true, and we can talk about that.
Living by example here.
Yeah.
But it is emotional. But what we want to do today, so here's the goal today. Mike and I are going to talk statistics, numbers, and we're going to take the emotions out. We're not saying emotions don't come into play, because they do. But what we're going to do today is talk about why we think it's a great, great market for buyers and sellers. But we're going to take it down and explain the reason why. We're going to talk about the market, the inventory, interest rates, the job market, the strong job market, the average, all the stuff that's non-emotional, and why when you put all that data together and information, it will equate to what we think is a great real estate market, as it always is. So let's first talk a little bit about the inventory. When we do that, I know Mike usually refers to kind of Santa Clara County, right? So if you could start it for that.
We're looking at Santa Clara County, so single-family condominiums and townhouses. We have over 2,068 active for sale properties right now. 1,382 of those are single families, and the additional number is 648 condos and townhouses. So again, over 2,000 properties for sale in Santa Clara County. That happened, I think it was probably about a month ago. We crested above 2,000. And I'd say it's probably going to, so what, we're in May now, right?
Right.
So I would say over the next, it'll probably stay above 2,000 over the coming months, near the end of summer I would guess. And then it's going to start going down again, and then the cycle will start over again.
Yeah. So just to give them some reference to this, or some kind of frame of reference, I should say, Mike, let's just call it 2,000 inventory. Historically, if you're looking at a normal market, is it 3,500 or so? If you were saying, okay, this is a normal average for this population.
Yeah, I would say about, somewhere near the 3,000 mark is probably what's considered a quote-unquote normal market.
For this population-sized city. So we're a little still below normal, which you could call it, which is good, right? So that's a good thing, even though the market has changed a little bit. So inventory is good. So the reason we want to set the stage with that is that we don't have 10,000 homes on the market. We don't have 5,000 homes on the market. We have, you heard Mike, 2,000 roughly. But keep in mind, there was only about 1,300 or so, if I'm not mistaken, Mike said, of single-family residents. So the reason that's a big number is that there's a huge percentage of condominiums. And the reason I want to just highlight that for a second, because typically when you're looking at move-up buyers, Mike, or even first-time home buyers, I mean, let's face it, condos are great. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with condos. It's a great way to get in. It's a great way for a lot of things, second homes. But for the most part, if someone's looking to grow and expand and move up, they're typically looking for single-family, right? That
is true. Yeah, they are looking for single-family, and that is the next step, I think. And what happens, too, with single-families versus condos and townhouses usually lag behind the single-family market a little bit. So, like, when the single-family market gets hot or gets bad, the condo-townhouse market kind of lags behind that a bit. And, and I think, condos and townhouses work for specific people, but for the most part, it's not always the long-term solution for families or people that want a single family. So, single family is definitely that product more that most desirable. People are going to be looking for. It's more desirable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very good. So our inventory's good. And let's talk a little about interest rates now. Interest rates are still very, very good. Again, when I talk about interest rates, you want to be very careful, because interest rates, there's a cost to rates. And what I always mean by that is that, depending on how much you borrow, what your credit score is like, your ability to qualify, if you're self-employed, there's all kinds of things that go into getting pre-approved and getting qualified for a rate and a loan. So don't let anybody talk to you about this rocket mortgage where you just close your eyes and duck underneath and get it free, because it doesn't happen that way. But so the point here is, again, we're talking about non-emotional stuff. The reality is rates are very good now. So what are they? Rates are still in the low to mid 4% for 30-year money. That they are. Think about that, 30-year money. So now if you want an ARM product, depending, again, on your credit scores, your loan-to-value, ability to qualify, you could get ARM rates, Mike, in the 3% range now. So
that's nice.
Yeah. Right? So the point here is we've talked about
I got an ARM on my house, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
I have an ARM. You did it, so you know.
Yeah, no, it is. And if you, of course, that's another factor. If you're doing cash out, things like that, obviously rates are going to be a little bit higher. But on a purchase, or let's say just a refinance where you're not taking cash out, the lender looks at it as less risk, whether you like it or not. That's the way the market works, and so you're going to get a little better interest rate. So we've looked at inventory. Inventory is relatively low still. It's good. It's not super low. It's still good.
Here's another. If we're talking stats, I think this is really good. I'm just pulling live data as we're doing this, and so you guys are getting hot off the presses.
So this is
real-time data. You can't buy this information anywhere else. No, I'm just kidding. So I really like to run analysis on average days on market, and also the sale-to-list price ratio.
Oh, there you go.
And so if you look at it year over year, again, last year at this time, it started getting a little bit more normal. I would say in 2018, from January to April was pure insanity.
Right.
But now this year it's been a lot more
last May
normal.
Is when it all kind of started leveling a little bit.
I think May into June when graduation started, and graduation spanned like a month now. I remember it used to be like one weekend, but everyone was gone. It was crazy. So if you look at the sale to list price ratio, around this time last year, it was about 112 to 114%. And what that means is if a property was listed at $1 million, it was selling on average 12 to 14% higher than the list price. So you can do the math.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is looking at days on market. So how quickly things are selling.
Okay.
At this time last year, it was about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And right about now, it's a little bit over 3 weeks. It's about 3.5 weeks at this time. So those are really good indicators of things kind of leveling out a little bit, getting more normal, and all that.
So that's year over year.
That's year over year.
So what did you say, unless I missed it? So you did the average days is now 3 weeks, where it was 2 weeks.
About 25 days right now.
And then what is the average over? You said it was 15%.
And then right about now,
it's
now? About between 2 and 4% on average over. That's a stat that we can talk about on a per area basis, because there's certain areas right now that are extremely hot.
Mm-hmm.
For example, again, we do this podcast in Silicon Valley, so I'll just focus on that. The foothills of the area, so you have your Berryessas, your East San Jose, and your Santa, all that.
Right.
Those are extremely hot markets right now, and I believe because it's affordability.
Okay.
Another hot market is Santa Clara, the city, not the county, Santa Clara City, because people are getting priced out of Sunnyvale and Mountain View and all that, and then they're coming to Santa Clara, which is still a relatively good location. I've heard some insane stories about Santa Clara right now. I told some of my own stories a couple months ago on this podcast on that. So those are some of the really hot markets, and I would venture to guess that the sale to list price ratio in those areas is going to be much higher than, let's say, Gilroy, for example, or certain parts of San Jose that aren't as hot. One other stat, Joe, if I may.
Yep.
Months of inventory. This is always an interesting stat as well. What months of inventory means is if we ended the podcast today and no other houses came on the market. So if we ended the real estate world today on our podcast, if tomorrow no houses came on the market, how long would we have to sell out all the inventory in the county?
Okay.
This time last year, now I remember it was almost as low as 2 weeks, which is crazy low.
That is crazy low.
Now it's about 1.5 months.
Okay.
Right? So, again, to give some historical perspective, back in 2008, it was about 6 months of inventory were on the market, and we had 6,000, 7,000 units on the market as opposed to the normal 2,500 to 3. So anyways, I really like the months of inventory stat, too, because it's like if the world ended tomorrow on real estate, how long would all of us realtors and buyers have to buy out all the stuff?
Yeah, and I love these statistics. I'm glad you brought them up, because this is going to kind of piggyback, or if you will, to what we're going to talk about our next transition. So you heard the statistics, right? So let's just real quickly go through them. First of all, inventory's normal, right? Still good, still a little bit low, historically speaking. Interest rates are very, very good, so once the cost of money is good, okay? Mike just gave you some phenomenal statistics that are really, really valuable, because those are real. That's not people's emotions. Remember, this is a non-emotional show. There's no crying. We're not going to cry in this show, as much as I've cried before on this show. Most of you have heard me. There's no crying in podcasting, right? No crying in baseball, no crying in podcasting.
What movie is that from?
That was the one with Tom Hanks and what was the name of that movie?
Great movie. Not Field of Dreams.
We'll figure it out. People are probably going, get back to damn real estate.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to that. So the reason I want to bring this up, non-emotional, so those are great statistics, and I want to catch this while I'm really thinking about what Mike just talked about it now. So the question is, Mike, people are asking, the logical question, if we're in a group of people, and
a league of their own.
Yeah, thank you, a league of their own. And if we're doing this in an audience, or we're with the consumers, or we're in an event, or whatever, or I'm across the desk from a client, one of the things they're going to say is, Joe, this is really helpful, but so here's the question, Joe. Which direction is that trend going to go? Is that trend going to keep going? Mike's saying it's a month and a half of inventory now, and it was 2 weeks a year ago.
Yeah.
If we talk a month from now, is it going to be 2 months of inventory, or is it going to be 3 weeks?
No, I'd say it'd probably trend more towards the 2 months. It'd probably a little bit more of an increase.
Okay.
Now that tax season is over, thank God, I've seen a little bit of a bump. I've seen more stuff coming out there. Summer starting. It might go a little bit higher, but then it evens itself out, because then people start going on vacation and kids are out of school and all that. So it's probably going to be in this range for a while, I would guess.
Right.
Pretty even, maybe up and down a little bit. But it's not really until September, or on is when it starts really kind of going back down to the holiday lows.
So I would say we've talked about the reality, the statistics, the data, and this is why I said yesterday in the show, and I'll talk again today, and you'll continue to hear me until you get sick of it with most people. Buyers, I'm telling you.
Sick of you, Joe.
Yeah. Buyers, this is a great time to buy. And I know the first response, okay, let's just do some dialogue here. Someone's going to say, Joe, yeah, but you just gave me the statistics, and homes are sitting a little bit longer, inventory's a little bit higher. Why is it a good time to buy? Thank you for asking. I'm going to answer that. This is why. Because if you were living this life that we all lived a year ago, and, you know, if you go back a year and then 2 to 3 years ago, you remember what it was like? You couldn't get an offer accepted.
Yeah.
People would turn you away unless you had cash. They would laugh at you if you said, is it going to go for asking? They'd laugh in your face. I'm being a little sarcastic, but remember what that market was like. The reason I'm bringing this back is that people have short memories sometimes. The reason I think it's such a great buyer's market is, yes, the market's a little bit different. Absolutely. You could actually get a contingent offer. You might even be able to get a house for a little less than asking right now, depending on the market, depending on the... You might get someone to accept the contingency to sell your home before you buy a home.
Yeah.
The point here, Mike, is I'm trying to make, and I want to just really resonate. I hope this resonates with people that are on the fence or thinking, circling the wagons, thinking, I don't really know. If things change a little bit, and all of a sudden the market flips and all these IPOs, people start jumping out with cash in their pockets and people start coming in droves again, guess what? We could see a market like that again. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm telling you right now, if someone said, Joe, could we see another crazy seller's market like we saw the last couple of years? Yes. And here's why, I think. Rates are still good. There's still a ton of money in this marketplace.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to grow or build.
Yes.
Downtown San Jose, a couple other places, I get it. But I'm talking about single-family homes. If you want a home in a neighborhood in a certain area, there is no more place to build.
Yeah, right. And the only places there are to build is in places of what we call urban sprawl, and the city's just not into that anymore. To kind of hammer the point home on what Joe is saying, there really isn't, other than infill, high-density development.
Right.
Really isn't.
The last piece I'll put into this, and I'll see what Mike thinks about it, is the other piece that I would use to defend what I'm saying is that, let's just say, we're talking about $1 million home, and the worry the buyer says to me, they say, or Mike, they say, listen, $1 million, what if I waited for it? I mean, that home might sell for $950 or $925 or something if I wait a little while. Okay, so take that into consideration. It might, right? So let's say that happens, and you pay $1 million, and then a couple months down the road, that same house could be worth $950, and it could happen. But I'll use the other side, and that could happen. What if you pay $1 million for it, right? And then all of a sudden, a year from now, the market goes crazy again. It becomes a seller's market, and that home now is all of a sudden worth 1.1 or 1.2. Now, it's only on numbers. It's only on paper. You're not going to sell probably. I guess my point, Mike, the reason why I looked at both sides is because you and I talk about this a lot. If you're going to be in this market for 5 to 7 plus years, and you know it, and you have no intention to sell or move or leave, right? It's always a good time to buy a home, and that is my opinion. And I don't know that I'll ever change that opinion here.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
Not if it's long term.
I agree 120%.
Don't you think?
I mean, yeah, I do. And because, think about even how long did the actual 08 recession really last?
Yeah. 3 years.
Right.
Roughly, maybe, I think. Yeah.
Roughly that. And that was basically the worst recession since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And so now you factor in all of the things that you had mentioned a couple minutes ago regarding why, and again, we're really speaking towards the California and Silicon Valley. And yeah, I just don't, you can never say never, of course, but I think that based on everything we just mentioned in the last few minutes, and it's a 5 to 7 year investment, I mean, come on, people.
Yeah. And on top of that, when you look around the surrounding areas, the other thing that you have to think about, and I know people talk about it all the time, but mark my word, downtown San Jose is going to change and it'll be transformed in the next 7 to 10 years. You won't believe what downtown San Jose will look like in the next 7 to 10 years, don't you think?
There's some major happening down there.
There is.
There's a lot of.
There is.
I mean, we had even Eric, the guy we had on a couple of weeks ago, about the opportunity zones. Outside of even the opportunity zones, besides all of that, there are some major companies. And I'm not just talking about the obvious ones like Google, but major companies that are coming in downtown. Zoom, Adobe's building a 4th tower down there.
Yep.
There's, I forget how many. I went to a speech that the mayor was at. How many companies are coming into downtown? It's crazy. Yeah. You know. So but it's good. It's good.
And so the reason I bring that up too is so if you get yourself on a Google map or kind of look and you have nothing to do in the evening, you grab a glass of wine or a beer and you're zooming in on your maps and stuff.
Yeah.
Look at that whole downtown San Jose area. And what I want to bring this up about is that this happens whenever you have a super aggressive growth pattern happening in a certain area, and this is the problem, people don't have patience. But if you look at maybe a 7, even a 5, 7, 10 year span, take a map, take a look at downtown San Jose, Mike. What I'm saying is any areas around downtown San Jose, if you look at the circle, if you do any particular areas that are very close where people could potentially buy a single-family home but yet still be really close to downtown San Jose.
Yeah.
The obvious is Willow Glen, Rose Garden, right? But if you go on the other side, what areas would be on the other side of downtown San Jose? Would that be
East San Jose,
Berryessa? So all those areas, keep in mind, there's going to be thousands and thousands of new jobs created in downtown San Jose. Now, follow me here. Anytime there's that many jobs created in an area, what people tend to look for is commute and distance from work. They do. People just do. They'll say, okay, if I'm working in downtown San Jose, Mike, what might be a decent area? I mean, you're a real estate agent. You do this every day. Tell me what people typically look for when they look for homes. Schools and work?
Yeah, I think it's schools and work and commute. I mean, especially since traffic is so bad. The perfect example of what you're talking about is I had a guy that came in from New York, and he has a great job. He's a manager at a big financial advising firm and over on Technology Drive right across from the airport. And he's like, look, I don't want to be in the car longer than 10 to 15 minutes in the morning. I'm like, whoa, that is a big ask, buddy. But, you know, so then you start looking at...
a big ask, by the way, not ask.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for clarifying. That is what I said. So basically looking at downtown San Jose.
Right.
You got to look at Japantown, which is really nice and charming.
It is.
You got to look at Rose Garden, which if you take surface streets is possible, and Willow Glen.
Yeah.
And that's really the cocoon he was in. And then after a while looking at what's possible there, then the timing started expanding a little bit. Like, hey, maybe I can spend a half hour in the car. And then, okay, let's look at Cambrian and Campbell and maybe even Almaden, depending on the time of day you're going in. So that's how you look at it. So to get back to your point, I would say schools are big, especially for, you know, young families, and commute, big.
Yeah. You know what I thought we should start doing is, other than giving people all this wonderful information, if I say so myself. No, seriously. We need to have a little more fun with this. I just thought about this, and I'm not going to put you on the spot. We could do something different. But if anyone obviously can't call in, we miss those days. Believe me, the live call-ins were fun.
Live calls were fun.
So if you want to ask a question of Mike and I on Facebook while they're doing the show live or later on, or email or call us, we should do something with the best questions, or if there's a question specifically about someone's house. Let's say, Mike, someone has a concern. I'll just give an example. You know, Mike, I heard you talk about that. Joe, I heard you talk about it. I'm thinking about selling my home. Can you tell me why I should do A, B, or C? I guess my point is, for the 2 or 3 people that have the best questions or the questions that send in, what can we give them? Can we get them a free pizza at Georgios?
We can give them a free pizza at Georgios. There you go.
Or a gift certificate?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we going to commit to?
Let's commit to a free large pizza at Georgios. Okay. It's basically like a $25 to $30 value anyway.
So how many... You don't want to get out of control, because we're going to be sending pizzas out left and right. And next thing be calling us what do they call
free
Grubhub
pizza show.
So how about up to 3 or 5 a week? I don't even know. 3 a week?
I think 3 a week's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do each week. Try to remind remind us this. So each week when Mike and I do the show,
better remember that, Grant.
Grant's going to just come on.
He wants a free pizza.
I know. He wants it. So 3 a week. This we're going to commit to. Anyone that emails or
Grant's
calls.
going to be emailing in some alias email.
Yeah. Anyone that emails or calls us or reaches out to Mike or I with a legitimate question, it has to be a legitimate question. Come on, I don't want you to reach out and go, hey, Joe, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
Yeah.
I want a free pizza. No, this would be, seriously, someone that is thinking about selling a home, buying a home, maybe I should refinance, maybe I should cash out, should I do that remodel? Something that applies to you or something that's personally going to make a decision in your real estate life, if that makes sense. So I'll just kind of clarify it. You have a question about whether it's a good time to buy a house. Maybe you're thinking about selling your home, or you're thinking about, gosh, I've been wanting to do this remodel. Should I do the cash out? Should I do an equity? In other words, something that personally is going to affect you financially. Call us with that question. Mike and I will help you. We'll get you on the phone. We'll answer any questions. And then for that, we're going to get you a free large pizza, right?
From the best Italian restaurant
From the best
in town.
Italian. If you haven't had pizza at Giorgio's, you got to do it. So that alone. All right, so we're going to commit to that each week. And again, it's a maximum of 3, so get your questions, your calls in quickly because we're not going to be any Grubhub delivery service. 3 a week. We're going to do that. So if you're listening to this podcast, pass it on to friends, family, coworkers. If you're watching us on Facebook, it applies to you too. Download the podcast, of course. We'd love to have you do that. So important. Most people know how to reach us, but just in case, we're going to let you know. So, RERadiolive.com. You could always email, call. My direct line, one way if you want to text or call, 408-838-9060. Mike, give them your contact.
408-630-0101, 408-630-0101. MikeDsells.com, and you can reach out to me through email on that as well.
Right. And, of course, again, if you're on the road driving or if you're doing something where you can't write this down, always go to the website. And let's say you didn't get Mike's number, just shoot me an email or text me, and I'll get it to you. The whole idea here is we want to try to give you as much education information as we can. We'll have a little fun at the same time and a lot of good pizza at the same time, too. So there we go. 3 a week. Dive in. Don't lose.
2 Italian guys giving away pizzas on a real estate show.
We're going to do it. All right.
That's the new name of the podcast.
There we go. That's absolutely for sure. So, all right. So we're going to wrap it up with that. So I would say, and I know Mike might have a couple closing words, I would say that, again, I'm serious about this. Buyers, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about it, if you were out there a year ago and you were getting beat up, I'm telling you right now is a great time to do it. There is no such thing as perfect timing. Anybody that tells you that in real estate and stocks, turn around and run. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I love these stories when people, I wrote a book because I knew about the meltdown. I wrote a book, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Either it was really lucky or something else was going on. So here's my point. You know, educate yourself enough to make the correct decisions on real estate. I'm saying if you're a buyer, be sure, get out there now is a great time. And if you're a seller, and if we didn't talk about much today about this, but if you're worried about listing your home because you're wondering, gosh, Joe, Mike, I don't know if I should list it because what if it sits on the market for a while? We have solutions for that too. We've talked about that before. We have programs that can help you buy before you sell. And that's what I would say.
Absolutely. I agree.
How about you?
I think you said enough. No, I agree. And I think we've said this for years. It never hurts to ask the questions. It never hurts to reach out to your advisors and make a sound financial decision on your most people's biggest assets not of their life.
Poor Mike's going to be shell-shocked with that.
Yeah, I'm never going to say ask again on our podcast, but anyways, you get the point.
Yeah,
so,
all right.
Good stuff, Joe.
Yeah, it was fun. So we're going to close that out. Again, a reminder, we'll do it on and on. 3 pizzas a week, you guys. 3 pizzas a week. Give us a call, text us with your questions, and make them legitimate. And thanks again for checking in today. Thank you for those that are tuning in on Facebook. Really appreciate that very much, for watching the show. And for those that are downloading the podcast, listen to it. Thank you for all your support. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.